Chapter 1. Don't look back. Just say, yes, I was in the middle of fixing the office PC for our company's CEO, Alexandra Vance, when I heard her voice. I stopped what I was doing, the side panel of the computer case resting on the plush carpet. Looking up, I saw her standing in the doorway and was about to ask what she needed. She beat me to it. We're done. Her tone was cold, leaving no room for negotiation. I didn't react the way she probably expected. No shock, no heartbreak. I just put the screwdriver down, pulled a wet wipe from the canister on her desk, and cleaned the dust from my hands. Okay, your call. I followed it up with an okay, hand gesture, my voice as casual as if I were asking what's for lunch. Alexandra froze for a second, her brow furrowed. My reaction had clearly thrown her. She probably thought the kept man she'd been supporting for the last year would drop to his knees and beg her to reconsider, or at least ask why. But I knew her too well. The woman was a control freak down to her bones. If I had begged, she would have kicked me to the curb with even more satisfaction. Of course, the other reason I didn't protest was that I was done with her too. When she first came on to me last year, she'd said she was amazed by my versatility. I could fix a computer, repair a camera, negotiate a deal, and map out a business strategy. She told me she needed someone exactly like me to keep her life in order, and she wanted me to be her boyfriend. What was I supposed to say to that? Someone was offering me the easy life on a silver platter. Why would I refuse? Taking the path of least resistance has always been my philosophy. So, just like that, we were together. But from the very first day, I knew that the moment her fascination wore off, I'd be worth less than an expired can of beans. I was just waiting for this day to come. You're not even going to ask why. Alexandra pressed, her composure starting to crack in the face of my calm. I smiled, tossing the used wipe into the trash can. What's the point? If you've made up your mind, then we're done. I stood up and brushed the dust off my pants. My resignation will be in your inbox this afternoon. Alexandra's expression turned ugly in an instant. She let out a cold snort. Leo, you better think this through. Without me, you can't even afford rent in this city. She wasn't wrong. In the year I'd been with her, I hadn't saved much. Most of my salary went toward buying her the little trinkets she'd mentioned offhand. Even though she was the CEO, I couldn't just be a boyfriend who only took and never gave, right? But a man has to be able to adapt. I wasn't about to let myself be backed into a corner. That was her problem, not mine. You don't need to worry about me, Ms. Vance. I picked up my beat-up old laptop, ready to leave. I fixed your desktop. If it breaks again, you'll have to call a repair service. I paused at the door. But I should warn you, they're expensive, and they might not even get the job done right. With that, I walked around her and out of the office. The second I was in the hall, the heavy office door slammed shut behind me. I'd clearly gotten under her skin. Back in my cubicle, I started packing my things. My coworkers shot me furtive glances, a mixture of pity and smug satisfaction. Everyone knew I was Alexandra's special project, and they'd never been shy about gossiping behind my back. Seeing me pack my desk, I bet more than a few of them were popping champagne in their heads. I worked fast. A single cardboard box was enough for all my belongings. On my way out, I placed my employee ID badge gently on the polished marble of the reception desk. Leo, are you really leaving? The receptionist asked quietly, a look of genuine disappointment in her eyes. I'd help her out with tech issues more times than I could count. Yeah, the world's a big place. Thought I'd go see it. I joked, then walked out of the building without a second glance. The weather today was perfect. The San Francisco sun was so bright you had to squint. For a second, I felt like I was on a movie set. I shielded my eyes with my hand and tried to hail an Uber. Just then, the window of a luxury sedan rolled down, revealing a face hidden behind a pair of designer sunglasses. Well, if it isn't Leo Hayes, the genius himself. Did you finally get kicked to the curb? The driver was Ben Carter, a buddy of mine from college. His family owned a constellation of businesses, a classic trust fund kid. He personally ran their most profitable venture, a high-end perfume company. But Ben never had that rich kid attitude, which is why we'd always gotten along. Back in our university days, I practically wrote all his papers for him. He had a knack for reading a situation. The sight of me standing outside the office building during work hours, laptop in hand, was all he needed to know I'd been fired. Sharp as ever, Mr. Carter, I said, sliding into the passenger seat. Ben took off his sunglasses and gave me a once-over. You look way too relaxed for a guy who just got dumped. You look like you just won the lottery. Close enough. Single and unemployed. It's a double blessing, you could say. I leaned back into the plush leather seat and let out a long sigh of relief. Ben started the engine. All right, you poor bastard. Let's go for a ride. We can figure out your next move. As the car pulled into traffic, he started ranting. I always told you that woman was no good for you. She puts on this ice queen, workaholic act, but she's got no real talent. Honestly, Ben knew what he was talking about. He and Alexandra had dated for about 2 weeks, 3 years ago, before it imploded. According to Ben, Alexandra didn't even know how to love herself, let alone anyone else. Worse, she had this deeply ingrained superiority complex, a belief that she was part of a privileged class that played by different rules. I didn't believe him at first, but after 3 days with her, I was a convert. That was the day I started preparing my exit strategy. I knew, without a doubt, that someone like her would never settle for a lifetime with someone like me. The deeper you fall, the harder the landing. By pulling out early, I'd walked away without a scratch. Alex making you her assistant was a criminal waste of your talent, Ben continued. If it were me, I'd have you running the show. I just chuckled. Come on, man. I'm just a guy who fixes computers. Bullshit. Ben spat. You forget that marketing plan you wrote in college? The professor used it as a case study for years. And what about that campus-wide coding competition? You single-handedly demolished the entire computer science department. Remember that? He shook his head. Leo, your problem is you're too damn lazy. You had to go for the easy life. Is that how a real man lives? You see those cheesy romance novels? How many of those characters who chase after high society love actually get a happy ending? I nodded. He was right. I had been coasting, thinking a quiet, simple life was enough. I never felt the need to claw my way to the top. But now that the free ride was over, it was time to sink my teeth into something real. Seriously, man, Ben said, his tone shifting. My marketing director just got himself thrown in jail for embezzlement. You want to give the job a shot? He glanced over at me. Name your salary. Whatever you want. I turned to look at him. You're not worried I'll run your company into the ground? If you can manage to bankrupt my company, I'd have to build a statue in your honor, Ben joked. Talent like that is hard to find. He had a point. His perfume company was a Fortune 500 firm. It wouldn't be easy to sink that ship. After a moment, I nodded. All right, I'm in. But you don't have to let me name my price. Just give me the market rate. I added, but I have one condition. When I make a decision, nobody gets to interfere. Done. I trust you, man. Ben suddenly swerved and pulled the car over. Come on, there's a bar up ahead. Let's grab a few drinks. To celebrate you escaping that hellhole, and to celebrate me landing a superstar. Benny, are you crazy? We get a DUI, and you won't be driving for the next 5 years. Do I look like an idiot? We'll get a lift home. Seeing the genuine excitement on his face, I felt a surge of emotion. Maybe it really was time to see how far I could go. As for Alexandra, she thought I was just an accessory. She had no idea I was only ever just passing through her world. Now I was done passing through. It was time to walk my own path. Chapter 2, New Job. New beginning. The bar Ben took me to his upscale, but he was never one for formalities. He dragged me over to the counter and ordered 2 glasses of top-shelf whiskey. Leo, I'm telling you, that woman Alexandra is going to regret this. I know her type. She acts without thinking, and then when it all blows up, I shook my head. Let's not talk about her. It's bad juju. Fine, you're right. Ben reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the bar to me. Here's the basic rundown on my perfume company. Take a look. Don't need to. I already did a full workup on your company when I was with Alex. I took a sip of whiskey. What I want to know is which genius came up with your current marketing strategy. The same jackass who's now in prison for embezzlement, Ben grumbled. He was some hotshot with a fancy overseas MBA, pulling in over $100,000 a month, spewing jargon every time he opened his mouth. Turned out to be completely useless and nearly walked away with $30 million of my money. I get pissed just thinking about him. Ben shook his head. Everyone thinks these guys with foreign degrees are brilliant. Bullshit. A lot of them are just people who go abroad and then do nothing but trash their own country. What kind of talent is that? Even if they have skills, you think they're going to stick around a small shop like this? Nah, They're all gunning for jobs at those big multinational corporations that have basically taken over the domestic market. I laughed and nodded. I knew the type. They act like they've achieved some higher state of being overseas, then look down their noses at everything back home. They can blow any minor, universal problem into a national crisis. I couldn't stand those types either. But I got their angle. It's all about the money. How else are they going to convince people to emigrate to their new home countries if they don't paint their old one as a dumpster fire? More immigrants mean more consulting fees for them, right? Anyway, forget him, Ben said, waving his hand dismissively. What do you think is wrong with the strategy? I'd already analyzed his company. The core problem was that they were trying to be a luxury brand without letting go of the mass market. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too. The result was a brand stuck in limbo. Regular consumers thought it was too expensive, while the wealthy saw it as too cheap. After all, if you want to sell to the elite, you have to price your product at a level that makes smart people hesitate. And if you want to sell to the masses, you need a price point that feels accessible. The problems are significant, I said, finishing my drink. Look, let me come into the office tomorrow. I'll give you a final verdict after I see the full picture. The next morning, I arrived promptly at the Aura Perfumes headquarters. Ben personally escorted me in and called a meeting with the marketing team. Everyone, this is Leo Hayes, he announced. From now on, he is the director of digital marketing for this company. What he says goes. Is that clear? The people sitting around the conference table exchanged uneasy glances, their skepticism palpable. The deputy director, a man named Mark Riley, looked particularly sour, his face dark enough to curdle milk. Mr. Carter, Mark began, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Which major firm did Mr. Hayes grace with his presence before this? He didn't wait for an answer. I heard he was an executive assistant over at Vance Innovations. That doesn't seem to have much to do with marketing, does it? A few low snickers rippled through the room. It was clear no one took an assistant seriously. Ben shot back. Mark, are you unaware that an executive assistant has to be a jack of all trades? Are you telling me my own assistant, Sarah Chun, doesn't know marketing? Mark didn't dare answer that, because before the embezzler was hired, Sarah had been the acting marketing director and had done a stellar job. I stepped forward, holding a file. Mr. Carter made a good point, so I'll just continue from there. Mr. Riley, this proposal was your work, correct? Yes, it was, he said defensively. It's a precision marketing strategy based on the latest big data analysis. I smiled and tossed the proposal back onto the table in front of him. With all due respect, this proposal is worthless. The room went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Mark shot to his feet, his face red with anger. What did you say? What gives you the right to call my plan garbage? I looked around the room, my voice calm and steady. Your proposal states that the target audience is women aged 18 to 35, correct? But your chosen advertising platforms are a handful of traditional news websites that are bleeding users. The justification was to save money, right? I leaned forward. Well, some things you can't cheap out on. Think about why the Fire Festival was such a disaster. Furthermore, your entire proposal is based on data that's several years old. It was obsolete from the start. Who in the target demographic even uses those sites anymore? I continued. And you spent $200,000 on a celebrity endorsement from a star who hasn't been relevant in 3 years? Mr. Riley, I admire your commitment to saving the company money, but I can't exactly applaud a strategy that involves slashing the budget on our main artery. To sum it up, I concluded, your plan is in fact not good. Mark was speechless. After a long, awkward silence, he finally managed to stammer. You talk a big game, Leo. What's your brilliant idea then? A female employee challenged me, clearly unconvinced. It's simple, I said. Modern marketing is about two things, engagement and emotional value. If you can deliver on those two fronts, you can sell anything. We need to create the illusion that using our perfume will make our customers feel richer, more attractive, or luckier. Additionally, I went on, we need to create brand synergy with other products. For example, we could partner with a popular video game IP that's starting to lose some of its heat, but still has a dedicated fan base. Ben looked confused. Why a game that's on a downswing? Because a developer on a downswing is more likely to grasp at any lifeline to save their IP. And the fact that it's still popular means they don't want to give up on it. And it comes with a huge built-in user base. They're the perfect partner for us. Ben's eyes lit up with understanding. He gave me a thumbs up. That day, I drafted a completely new marketing strategy based on my philosophy. When I presented it, everyone said it was brilliant. I couldn't tell if they were being sincere or just saying what Ben wanted to hear. But it didn't matter to me. All I cared about was delivering results. Time would prove me right, and it did. 3 months later, company revenue was up 5%. Aura Perfumes went from a Fortune 500 company to a top 100 contender. One day, while I was buried in work, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and a familiar voice came through the line. "Leo, are you done with your little tantrum?" It was Alexandra. Her tone was dripping with the condescending superiority of someone offering charity. "I heard you want to work for Ben Carter," she said. "What kind of future can a small company like that offer you? Come back. If you just admit you were wrong, your assistant position is still waiting for you." I couldn't help but laugh. "Ms. Vance, I think you're mistaken. You can keep that assistant position for whoever you want." Then I hung up and blocked her number. Finally, complete peace and quiet. Chapter 3. Skyrocketing sales for the next few weeks. I practically live at the office. The marketing team's attitude toward me shifted from initial resistance to cautious curiosity to outright admiration. The numbers, after all, don't lie. Revenue growth had been relentless, as if blessed by some mythical god of commerce. Their paychecks had grown just as steadily, and now that most of them were driving new cars, the complaints had completely vanished. Ben was ecstatic, constantly checking the sales data on his monitor. "Leo, hiring you is the best decision I ever made," he said, holding up the latest financial report. "Our revenue this month is up a full 20% over last month." I smiled, setting down my coffee cup. "Just goes to show what good leadership can do, right?" "Don't give me that corporate speak crap," he laughed. "Seriously, though, I've got something for you. To reward your hard work, I'm giving you a $200,000 raise to your annual salary. Don't even think about refusing. You've earned it." I didn't argue. I needed the money. In this world, money might not be everything, but you can't do a damn thing without it. That evening, Ben insisted on taking me out to celebrate. We ended up at a prime steakhouse downtown. Halfway through our meal, he brought something up. "Hey, Leo, I wanted to run something by you. A friend of mine has a cousin who just got back from Germany. She's in bioengineering. Smart, beautiful, great personality, and single. What do you say? Want to meet her?" I waved my hand dismissively. "Come on, man. Do I look like the kind of guy who can hold the attention of some brilliant scientist? That's a job for the chiseled jaw heroes in those cheesy romance novels." "Hey, let's not get personal," Ben coughed, referencing his own good looks. "But seriously, what's the harm in trying?" He was persistent, so I finally caved. "All right, fine. I'll meet her." The blind date was set for a quiet coffee shop. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting at a small table by the window. She wore a classic beige trench coat, her hair tied back casually. She radiated an aura of quiet intelligence. "Hi, I'm Leo Hayes," I said, walking up and offering a polite greeting. She looked up, revealing a delicate, pretty face. "Hello, I'm Evelyn Reed. You've probably heard that name a few times before." She was right about that. On TikTok, every other video making fun of cliché romance tropes seemed to feature a damsel in distress named Evelyn. But this woman was nothing like them. Her voice was pleasant, and she carried herself with grace and confidence. We hit it off immediately. She told me about her biological research in Germany, carefully avoiding any technical jargon she thought I might not understand. In return, I told her about some of my recent marketing campaigns, keeping my own explanation straightforward and accessible. She listened intently, occasionally offering surprisingly insightful suggestions. "You know, bioengineering and marketing have something in common," Evelyn said, taking a small sip of her coffee. "They're both about finding the right balance, don't you think?" I looked at her, feeling a spark of something unexpected, and nodded. This woman was a world away from Alexandra. She didn't have that overbearing, aggressive energy. Instead, she had a calming presence that put you at ease. Before we left, we exchanged numbers. "I hope I get to hear more of your cross-disciplinary theories next time," Evelyn said with a warm smile before she stood to leave. Back in my apartment, I was stretched out on the sofa when a news notification popped up on my phone. Vance Innovations CEO Alexandra Vance announces engagement. Fiancé's identity remains a mystery. I stared at the headline, feeling absolutely nothing. In fact, I almost wanted to laugh. Classic Alex, I thought. Getting married is one thing, but turning it into a press release to hog public attention? Is she a celebrity? A world-changing scientist? A politician? No. So what's with the charade? I turned off my phone, the image of Evelyn's smile replacing the headline in my mind. This blind date, it was definitely interesting. Just as I was about to head to bed, a message from Ben came through on WhatsApp. So, I told you she was great, right? I typed back a single word, jerk, and put my phone down. Tomorrow held new challenges, and for the first time in a long time, I was ready for them. As for the people and things from my past, they could just scatter in the wind. Chapter 4, A Hero's Gamble. After that day, my life settled into a comfortable rhythm. For my third date with Evelyn, we decided to visit the art museum downtown on a weekend. After spending a few hours wandering through the galleries, Evelyn suggested we stop by a bank nearby. I need to deal with my old German bank card, she explained with a smile. I've got to convert the funds to dollars, or it'll be a hassle to use later. Sure thing, I nodded. I'll go with you. The bank was quiet. We took a number and sat in the waiting area, chatting. Evelyn was in the middle of telling me a funny story about a mishap in her lab when the front doors were thrown open with violent force. 3 men in black ski masks, all holding guns, stormed in. Nobody move. This is a robbery, the leader yelled, firing a single shot into the ceiling. I was stunned. Who the hell robs a bank these days? But the gunshot was effective. The few customers in the lobby screamed in terror before the robbers quickly silenced them. Shut up. Anyone makes another sound, I'll shoot. The bank security guard was taken down with the butt of a rifle before he could even react. My heart hammered in my chest. I immediately grabbed Evelyn's hand. It was cold and trembling slightly, but she didn't scream. Don't be afraid. Stay down, I whispered in her ear, pulling her slowly toward a blind spot behind a teller counter. These guys are amateurs. The cops will be here any minute. We're going to be okay. The robbers moved quickly. One vaulted the counter to handle the tellers. Another stood watch over the lobby, and the leader kept his eyes on the entrance. Boss, I got the money, one of his accomplices shouted. Just then, the wail of sirens cut through the air outside. Damn it, how did the cops get here so fast? The leader growled, his face contorting with rage as he glanced out the window. It was obvious these guys weren't seasoned criminals. The sound of sirens sent them into a panic. Of course, a real pro wouldn't try to rob a bank in broad daylight in a major U.S. city. It was a suicide mission. Grab some hostages. Now, the leader commanded. The robber patrolling the lobby immediately started heading our way. His eyes landed on Evelyn, who was still crouched in the corner. A woman as beautiful and well-dressed as her stood out, even in a crowd of terrified people. You, get up, he barked, pointing his gun at her. Evelyn's face was pale, her body shaking uncontrollably. A surge of anger shot through me. If I just cowered in the corner now, I didn't deserve to call myself a man. I stood up, blocking his path to her. Pick on someone your own size. Get out of my way. I don't have time for this, he snarled, reaching out to grab Evelyn's hair. My eyes went cold. In the split second his hand was extended, I swept his legs out from under him, sending him sprawling across the floor. You really shouldn't have done that, I said calmly. I wasn't looking for trouble, but you brought it right to me. The other robbers were shocked that a hostage would fight back. They immediately turned and fired in my direction. I could have dodged, but I saw one of the bullets was heading straight for Evelyn. Without a second thought, I lunged forward and pushed her out of the way. But in doing so, I couldn't move myself in time. At that exact moment, the bank's glass doors shattered as a SWAT team stormed in. The robbers were subdued in seconds. As for me, a wave of dizziness washed over me, and I collapsed. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing I noticed was the sharp, antiseptic smell of a hospital. You're awake. A gentle voice spoke beside me. I turned my head and saw Evelyn sitting by my bed, her eyes red and puffy. Evelyn, are you okay? I'm Fina. You idiot, she said, tears welling up again. Why did you push me out of the way? I looked down at my left arm, which was wrapped up like a mummy. It's nothing, just a scratch. The doctor told me the bullet had grazed my arm, tearing through a major artery. That's why I passed out. I'd lost a lot of blood. Luckily, it had only damaged muscle tissue, not bone. With a month of rest, I'd be fine. It was the best-case scenario for a worst-case situation. After that day, Evelyn was a constant presence in my hospital room. Our relationship, forged in the crucible of that terrifying afternoon, had taken a quantum leap forward. "Leo, thank you," she said one evening, as the setting sun cast a warm glow across the room. She gently took my hand, her eyes full of a soft, tender light. "But please, don't ever do something so reckless again. You'll make me worry." I looked at her and smiled, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. From that day on, I knew I had found someone truly worth protecting. Chapter 5. An unwelcome visitor. After 2 weeks in the hospital, the stitches in my arm were finally removed. I still couldn't lift anything heavy, but I was clear to return to my normal life. Evelyn insisted on driving me back to the office. "You're returning as a hero," she teased as she navigated through traffic. "I bet Ben has a huge welcome ceremony planned for you." I laughed. "As long as he doesn't make me give a speech, I'll be fine. Public speaking is not my thing." Sure enough, when we pulled up to the office building, Ben was there, flanked by the entire marketing department. They were holding a massive banner that read, "Welcome back, Leo the Lionheart." I cover my face, feeling a lifetime's worth of embarrassment wash over me in a single moment. "Now, you're finally back." Ben rushed forward and pulled me into a crushing bear hug, putting painful pressure on my healing arm. "Easy, man, easy. Are you trying to send me back to the hospital?" I grumbled, pushing him away. Sorry. Just got excited." Ben's gaze shifted to Evelyn standing behind me, a sly, matchmaking grin spreading across his face. "Hey, Evelyn. Glad you could make it. Looks like I did a pretty good job playing Cupid." Evelyn smiled graciously. "Ben, I'm trusting you to take care of Leo. Don't let him overdo it. Don't worry, he's my golden goose now. I'll take better care of him than my own car." After Evelyn left, I walked back into my office, which I hadn't seen in weeks. A mountain of files sat on my desk, but they were all neatly organized. Mark Riley came in, his attitude a complete 180 from before. "Mr. Hayes," he said respectfully, "while you were out, we continued to execute the strategy you laid out. The pre-sale numbers for Black Friday have already crossed $2 million. The factories are running overtime just to keep up with production." I nodded. "Good work, Mark. Thank you. Once we're through this busy season, I'll take the whole team out for a proper dinner." "Thank you, sir," Mark said with genuine gratitude before heading out. Watching him leave, I had a smile. In the end, respect isn't given, it's earned. And nothing earns it faster than results. Later that afternoon, I was reviewing a contract for a cross-promotional campaign when my assistant knocked on the door, a strange expression on her face. "Mr. Hayes, there's a Ms. Vance here to see you." I looked up confused. "Say that again? Who is it?" "The CEO of Vance Innovations. She's asking for you by name." "Let her in." I put down my pen and leaned back in my chair. The door opened, and Alexandra Vance walked in. She was wearing a striking red trench coat, her makeup flawless. She hadn't changed a bit. "Now, it's been a while." She scanned my office, her tone laced with a familiar note of condescension. "It looks like Ben is treating you well. He even gave you such a big office." "It's all right," I replied coolly. Alexandra's face tightened for a moment. Then she let out a cold laugh. "I heard you tried to play the hero a few weeks ago. Almost got yourself killed in a bank. When did you become such an attention seeker?" I stared at her, finding her logic completely baffling. "Ms. Vance, if you're here to ask about my injury, then thank you for your concern. If you're here to sling insults, the door is right behind you. Don't let it hit you on the way out." Alexandra gritted her teeth and strode toward my desk. "I'm getting married next Wednesday at the Fairmont." She pulled a gold-embossed invitation from her purse and tossed it onto my desk. "Even though we broke up, we were together for a while. If you have any decency left, you'll come and have a drink." I glanced at the invitation without any desire to even open it. "Congratulations. If I'm free, I'll be there. But it's not likely. I'm very busy these days." "Busy?" Alexandra's voice shot up. "Busy taking that PhD woman out on dates? Leo, don't think I don't know what you're up to. You found a doctor just to prove you could do better without me, didn't you?" Her reasoning was so self-centered I almost burst out laughing. "Alexandra, Do you really think you're the center of the universe? That everything revolves around you? I stood up, meeting her gaze directly. Who I date has absolutely nothing to do with you. And yes, my life is much better without you. Not because I left you, but because I'm capable enough to make it better on my own. Alexandra trembled with rage. Fina, that's just fine. Leo, you'll regret this. She snatched her purse and stormed out, the sharp clicks of her heels echoing down the hallway. I picked up the invitation from my desk and dropped it straight into the trash can. Regret? The only thing I regretted was wasting a year of my life saying yes to her in the first place. Just then, Ben walked in, catching a glimpse of Alexandra's retreating back. What was she doing here? If her company wants to do business, they should be talking to my sister. She was dropping off a wedding invitation. All right, I heard about that, Ben said, plopping into a chair. Her fiancé is a total screw-up. His family's company is about to go bankrupt. This marriage is a last-ditch effort to save it. She's hoping the news of the merger will attract a new wave of investors. And believe it or not, a few idiots actually fell for it and threw $30 million at her. I wasn't surprised. Her fiancé might be a mess, but Alexandra wasn't. Her company was still on an upward trend. Makes sense. Vance Innovations still has some cachet. Pulling an investment isn't out of the question. Anyway, forget her. Ben slid a folder across my desk. Here's the development plan for next month. Take a look and get a head start on the scheduling. There are a few events in there that will require your personal attendance. I opened the file and scanned the contents. There were 3 networking events I needed to attend. The most important one, a major industry gala, was one that Evelyn would also be at. A smile touched my lips. All right, got it. I'll work it into my calendar. Chapter 6. A different kind of reunion the gala Evelyn was attending was held on a Wednesday in the grand ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel. The place was dazzling, dripping with chandeliers and sparkling with champagne flutes. I arrived in a sharp, deep blue suit, feeling ready for the night. Ben came too, but he immediately disappeared into the crowd to network with his peers in the fragrance industry. I found a table with a few directors from other companies I was friendly with and settled in a talk shop. A few minutes later, Evelyn arrived. She was immediately surrounded by a group of men in bespoke suits, all clearly engrossed in some academic discussion with her. I walked over and gently tapped her on the shoulder. Dr. Reed, you look stunning tonight. She turned, and her face lit up the moment she saw me. You made it. She excused herself from the conversation and naturally looped her arm through mine. How's the arm feeling? It stops hurting the moment I see you, I quipped, earning a light, musical laugh from her. Just then, a commotion rippled through the crowd near the entrance. I looked up to see Alexandra Vance walking in, clinging to the arm of a man in a white tuxedo. The man was handsome enough in a generic way, but his eyes had a vacant, unfocused look, the telltale sign of a life spent chasing thrills. This had to be the mysterious fiancé. Alexandra's eyes scanned the room and locked onto me, or more accurately, on Evelyn by my side. Her expression soured instantly. She dragged her fiancé straight toward us. Well, look what we have here, Leo, Alexandra said, her voice dripping with venom. I'm surprised they let you into a place like this. She sized up Evelyn with a look of pure hostility and jealousy. And you must be the famous Dr. Reed. Dressed like that. Who are you trying to hook tonight? The air around us turned ice cold. Evelyn's brow furrowed, but she maintained her composure. Ms. Vance, I'd appreciate it if you watched your tone. I pulled Evelyn slightly behind me, my eyes fixed on Alexandra. This is a professional event, not a stage for your high school drama. Drama? Alexandra scoffed, tightening her grip on her fiancé's arm. Let me introduce you. This is my fiancé, the heir to the Fisher Corporation, Lance Fisher. The man, Lance, lifted his chin arrogantly. So, were you the assistant who lived off her? I hear you're running errands for Ben Carter now. He smirked. A man needs to know his place, Leo. At high-class events like this, the only thing you should be doing is fixing the computers by the door. A low murmur went through the nearby crowd. Many of them recognized me, and their glances were now filled with a new, speculative curiosity. I was about to respond when Ben appeared out of nowhere. Lance, you might want to clean out that filthy mouth of yours. Ben snapped, his face livid. Leo is the director of marketing at my company, with a 7-figure salary. You, on the other hand, are the heir to a sinking ship. What gave you the right to act so high and mighty? Lances fas palette. Ben, who are you calling a sinking ship? Who do you think? You know exactly what state your family's business is in. Enough. Stop fighting. Alexandra cut in, her gaze locked on me. Leo, do you really think working for Ben is going to change anything? I'm telling you, I've already spoken with the major distributors. Your little startup, Aura Perfumes, is about to be wiped off the market. At this, Ben actually laughed. Alex, I'm only just now realizing what a bullet I dodged all those years ago. You've gotten older, but you sure haven't gotten any smarter. What connections do you have in the fragrance world to wipe us out? It's hilarious. The very distributors you mentioned called me right after you left their offices. They told me all about your little visit. They see you as a joke, Alex. You're the only one who still takes yourself seriously. Just then, the event's host stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are incredibly honored to have with us a distinguished scholar in the field of bioengineering, Dr. Evelyn Reed. She will be sharing her latest research breakthrough, a low-damage medical technology capable of completely eradicating cancer cells. The entire ballroom erupted in thunderous applause. Evelyn smiled at me, then walked gracefully to the podium. For the next 20 minutes, you could have heard a pin drop. She explained her technology in clear, accessible language. The CEOs of major pharmaceutical and medical tech companies in the audience were on the edges of their seats, their eyes wide with disbelief and excitement. After her presentation, a flood of people rushed toward Evelyn, all clamoring for a partnership. But Evelyn simply pointed in my direction. Ladies and gentlemen, I have already exclusively licensed this technology to Nexus Biopharmaceuticals, a partner company of Aura Perfumes. Nexus was the company run by Ben's older brother. If you're interested in collaboration, you can speak with the director of marketing for Aura Perfumes, Mr. Leo Hayes. After all, his boss is the brother of Nexus's CEO. In that instant, every eye in the room turned to me. I was met with a wave of shock, envy, and raw ambition. Alexandra and Lance were completely frozen, their faces cycling through shades of white, red, and a sickly green. I calmly adjusted my suit jacket and walked over to stand in front of Alexandra. You really are a joke, Ms. Vance. Then, with Evelyn on my arm, I turned and walked away, leaving her to stew in her own failure. Behind me, I heard the distinct sound of someone collapsing to the floor. Who it was, I didn't know, and I couldn't have cared less. Chapter 7. Public execution. A couple of days later, a rumor started making the rounds in our circles. Vance Innovations and the Fisher Corporation were joining forces to develop a revolutionary new fragrance. They even released a teaser trailer for it, filled with shots of opulent labs and luxurious ingredients. The trailer was so absurd I almost died laughing. Where are they getting the technology for that? Ben asked, frowning. The Fisher family's R&D department was gutted years ago. I smirked. I bet they don't have any. This is a classic pump and dump. They're creating hype to attract investors before they have a viable product. It was a common enough tactic, but Alexandra was being incredibly reckless. She seemed to have forgotten a crucial detail. Her company didn't make perfume. Their core business was instant noodles and soft drinks. Did she think she was some kind of tech visionary who could pivot into a completely new industry overnight? Just then, I got a text message. It was from Evelyn. Léo, Lance Fischer contacted me privately. He wanted to buy the production rights for a wellness fragrance my research institute developed. My eyes narrowed. What did you tell him? I blocked his number, she replied, a laughing emoji next to it. But it doesn't seem like he's giving up. He's hired a few so-called experts to try and reverse engineer our technology. Interesting. An idea began to form. Take the patent for that fragrance, I typed back. Change a few key components, things that look insignificant but will cause a major flaw in production, and then sell it to him. Evelyn hesitated. Leo, is that a good idea? The wolves are already at the door, Evelyn. It's time to load the shotgun. A moment later, she replied with a simple, okay. 2 weeks later, the Vance Fisher collaborative fragrance held its official launch event. It was an extravagant affair, with nearly every major player in the city's business scene in attendance. However, during the product demonstration, disaster struck. The first group of volunteers to try the new fragrance had barely walked off the stage when a strange odor began to fill the air. It wasn't a pleasant scent. It It was the faint but unmistakable smell of rotten eggs. What is that? What's that smell? Oh my God, my skin is turning red. The scene descended into chaos. It turned out that the minor changes Evelyn had made to the formula had transformed the wellness fragrance into a low-grade chemical irritant. It wasn't lethal, but it was more than enough to kill Alexandra and Lance's new venture. Reports from the event said that the microphone slipped from Alexandra's hand, and Lance was so terrified he bolted backstage and hid. The highly anticipated launch party had turned into a public execution. To make matters worse, Evelyn's Institute released a statement afterward, confirming that Alexandra had aggressively pursued the purchase of an experimental, unstable technology. Evelyn even provided recordings of her repeatedly refusing to sell, citing that the technology was not ready for market. But Alexandra had insisted. She had warned them that the formula required significant modification, but never imagined they would rush it into production without any changes. The fallout was immediate. Vance Innovations' stock price plummeted. The Fisher Corporation was shut down entirely after investigation revealed it was already embroiled in scandals involving false advertising and fraudulent fundraising. I watched the news unfold with a sense of detached calm. They had brought this on themselves. Just then, Ben walked into my office. "Now, big news," he announced. "Alexandra's wedding is off. She not only lost a fortune, but her reputation is completely destroyed." I paused for a moment, then shook my head. I guess what they say is true. You reap what you sow. That night, my phone rang. It was Alexandra. Her voice was brittle and exhausted, completely stripped of its usual arrogance. "Leo, it was you, wasn't it?" I stayed silent for a moment before answering calmly. "Alexandra, I don't have time for games like that. You were just too greedy. If you had focused on making a good product instead of trying to tear everyone else down, you wouldn't be in this mess." "Now, I was wrong," she whispered, her voice breaking into a sob. "I regret everything. Can we start over? I'll give you half of my company." I laughed, my voice steady and final. "Ms. Vance, I think you're still missing the point. The day you said we were done, we were done." I hung up the phone. Outside my window, the city lights began to twinkle to life. I grabbed my jacket and walked out of the office. Evelyn was waiting for me downstairs. "Finished with work?" she asked with a sweet smile. "All done," I said, taking her hand. "Let's go. I'll take you somewhere nice to eat." And together, we walked off into the night. Chapter 8. Crying for a Fool, and for a man who was never coming back a few months later, Aura Perfumes was the undisputed king of the domestic fragrance industry. My relationship with Evelyn had deepened, and we were now at the stage of meeting each other's families. One Saturday, Evelyn insisted on dragging me to the mall. "Mr. Director," she said, her arm linked firmly with mine, "those few dress shirts you own are about to disintegrate. We are buying you new ones today. Non negociable." I could only laugh and surrender. All right. You're the boss." The mall was bustling with people. We were in a department store, picking out some new kitchenware, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Lau." The voice was trembling, laced with disbelief. I turned around and saw Alexandra Vance. She was dressed simply, in jeans and a plain sweater. She had lost a lot of weight, and the sharp, commanding aura she once projected was gone. In her hand, she clutched a simple canvas tote bag. Her eyes were filled with a storm of emotions. "It really is you," she whispered, walking toward me. Her gaze flickered between me and Evelyn, who stood calmly by my side. Evelyn instinctively moved a little closer to me and offered a polite nod. "Ms. Vance." "It's been a while." Alexandra ignored her completely, her eyes fixed on me. "Leo, I've been looking for you. Is there something you need, Ms. Vance?" She bit her lip, her eyes turning red. "That day, when I said we should break up, I was just joking." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I thought you would try to win me back, like you always did. I thought you would beg me not to go. I even announced my engagement on purpose. I was trying to force you to come find me." Before she could finish, I couldn't stop myself from letting out a short, sharp laugh. "Alexandra, do you really think that a funny kind of joke to play?" I looked her straight in the eye, my voice cold and clear. "In your world, maybe I was just a pet you could toy with whenever you were bored. But for me, every relationship I enter, I take it seriously." Tears finally spilled from Alexandra's eyes and ran down her cheeks. "I was wrong, Leo. I truly know that I was wrong. I've regretted it every single day for the past year. Without you, my life is a mess. My computer breaks, and there's no one to fix it. I get sick, and there's no one to take care of me. Her voice cracked. My company is about to go under. Leo, please will you come back and help me? Evelyn frowned slightly, but, with her impeccable manners, said nothing. I gently squeezed her hand, a silent reassurance. Then, I turned my full attention back to Alexandra. You're wrong, Ms. Vance, I said slowly. It's not me you lost. You lost your own basic sense of respect for other people. And until you understand that, you'll never be able to hold on to anything good that comes into your life. As for your company, that's a result of your own business decisions. I can't help you with that. I paused, letting the words sink in. Besides, I have my own career now. I have someone I love. Why would I ever go back to you? Alexandra stared at the way Evelyn and I stood together, a picture of quiet unity, and the last glimmer of hope in her eyes finally died. She had always believed that all she had to do was snap her fingers, and I would come running back. She never imagined that she could push things too far. Leo, is there really no chance for us? She asked, her voice so small it was almost lost in the noise of them all. No chance, I replied, offering her a polite but distant smile. I hope you find someone who can truly put up with you someday. With that, I took Evelyn's hand and turned away. Hey, you know, that frying pan we saw earlier was pretty nice. Let's go take another look. Okay, Evelyn said softly. The one we have at home is getting pretty old. Alexandra stood frozen in place, watching our backs as we walked away. In that moment, she finally understood that some jokes should never be told. Some decisions can cost you everything, and some mistakes, once made, can never be undone. The truth was, Alexandra had always known what I was capable of, but she also knew that if I ever truly used my skills, I would have the power to leave her. What she had never considered was that the opportunity she refused to give me, someone else would offer in a heartbeat. A thoroughbred horse never lacks for a discerning eye, especially one whose talent has already been proven. She sank to the floor, right there in the middle of the store, and burying her face in her hands, she began to sob. She was crying for her own foolishness. She was crying for a past she could never get back. And most of all, she was crying for the man who was never, ever coming back to her. A few weeks later, on the day of my engagement party with Evelyn, I heard the news that Alexandra had taken her own life. They said she left a note. All it said was, if I could do it all over again, I would never lose. My only thought was that she'd been reading too many of those trashy web novels. Even if second chances were real, why would someone like her ever deserve one? The end.